What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another late night in the Brew Lab with me, Lone Fox, your brew master in chief. And tonight in the Brew Lab, I'm coming at you with a mono red deck, and it does appear as though mono red is back on the menu, boys. And before I jump into it, I have to give credit where credit is due. The original brew is from a good friend, Greg. He is on Burning Tempest Gaming. I'll leave a link to it in the video description. It's a lovely little tight-knit Facebook community to do with Magic, not just Arena, but also paper. Should definitely go check them out. And he's the one who sent me this list this morning. He'd had a like 17-0 streak with it or something, or 17-2. He was like, dude, you got to check this out. So I jumped on it, and there's definitely something to it. So I've definitely done some adjustments since then. I've been on a bit of a mono red bent today. We're going to be diving into all three of these tonight. They're very, very similar. I've just kind of trying to figure out numbers of removal and numbers of cards, but the cards that are in them are virtually identical. So without further ado, I'll jump into the first one, which is the one that's probably closest to Greg's original brew. And we start the brew off at the top with a bunch of 1-drops, and they're all like, you know, there hasn't been a good mono red in standard since Eldraine rotated out. No more Embercleave, no more Bone Crusher Giant, all that stuff. Torbrand, bye. Like mono red has just been non-existent as an aggro deck. You know, there's been some really good red cards. You know, Goldspan Dragon, probably one of the best cards in the format. But it's been in like, is it? And but there hasn't been like a mono red deck, you know, that really is good. So finally, it seems like it's getting there, and a lot of the good pieces for it have come from one set, which is insane. And the first one is this Kumano faces Kakkazan. Epic name, first of all, but basically it deals 1 damage to each opponent and each planeswalker they control when it first enters the battlefield, which can be quite nice if they've got like a Lolth that they've just minused and she's sitting on 1 loyalty, and you top deck one of these in the late game, goes face and kills the Lolth. Pretty nice. Then on the second chapter, whenever you cast a creature, it enters the battlefield with an additional +1/+1 counter. Sorry, when you cast your next creature, it'll enter the battlefield with an additional +1/+1 counter on it, effectively modifying it, which is going to be very relevant, and you'll see why more in a moment. But really, really nice to kind of grow your 2-drop or your, you know, potentially your 3-drop if you play this on turn 2, which is what I usually do. And then on the third chapter, it comes back as the Etchings of Kumano, which is a 2/2 with haste. And while this has been phrased wrong, I'm sure. If anybody can understand why they would have put it this way, please let me know in the comments. But if a creature dealt damage this turn, they put this turn in there by any sort, by a source you control to die, exile it instead. It's not just this turn. It's as long as Etching of Kumano is on battlefield, anything that you remove of the opponent gets exiled instead, which is fantastic against your like Eye Twitches, Shambling Gas, and all that stuff, because they get none of their death triggers. So yeah, and against all your sacrifice decks and things, having Etchings of Kumano on the battlefield is really, really nice, because everything just gets exiled. If okay, sorry, not your sacrifice decks, because it has to be dealt damage by a source you controlled and then die. Okay, so it has to be removed by one of your removals, but still pretty cool. Then we've got a couple copies of Play with Fire. Nice that it can go face. Sometimes it's all you need, a little bit of extra damage to the opponent, and you win the game. But the Scry is nice as well. The original brew had 4 copies. I've gone down to 2. But you know, this is one of the ones where I'm still trying to figure out the right number. Then we've got full playset of another new card from Kamigawa, the Rabbit Battery. This is another, I think, going to be crucial piece in any, you know, going forward if RDW is to be a thing again. It's a 1/1 haste, and it's got a very cheap reconfigured cost of 1 red mana, so you can attach it to creatures really, really quickly and really, really cheaply, and it effectively gives any new creature that you cast haste just for 1 extra mana. So pretty nice, and that also makes it modified, which is again important in the deck. So we'll get to that in a moment. Then we've got 3 copies of the Reinforced Ronin. Again, the original brew had 4. I was just trying to like figure out some space for a few other things, so I've ended up with 3. I really like this card. There's many reasons why this is going to end up in lots of decks, I think. The first reason why it's in this deck is just because it's a 1-mana 2/2 with haste. And it just keeps coming back to your hand. So then, like, your opponent doesn't have anything to remove. Like, it's quite nice in that sense. Like, just sort of gets in for damage and then disappears. And then at some point, once the opponent either has the mana for removal and you think that he does, or puts up effective blockers and you can no longer get through with your 2/2, you can just channel it and discard it and draw a card. So really, really nice. But in your deck where you're playing your Oni Cult Anvil, and here's a little tip for you guys if you're trying to build around that deck. I just kind of clicked when I was looking at this creature type. It's artifact creature human samurai, so it's also an artifact. And that deck, the Oni Cult Anvil cares about artifacts leaving the battlefield to get its trigger. So this will leave the battlefield at the end of turn anyway. So you get, you might have some decks where you have ETBs for artifacts entering the battlefield with your automaton, I think it's called, the misshaped automaton or something like that. It's a 2-drop with ward 2. And then, so you get the trigger for this guy coming in because it's an artifact. And then when it leaves, you get the trigger from the Oni Cult Anvil. It's pretty nice. I'm probably going to be doing a brew on that over the next couple of days, so keep your eyes peeled. Then we've gone with Flame Discharge. And Greg, if you're watching this, I recommend that you consider running a few copies of this in your deck. If you don't want to run 3, maybe 2. It's just got a much higher ceiling. I was running into this problem where I couldn't remove, Goldspan Dragons with any of the stuff in the deck. This is great for many reasons, okay? I think people are a little bit sleeping on this card in their modified decks. Like, this is going to be showing up in my Gruul modified lists, in my Mono Red, in my Naya modified lists, which we'll be getting to as a sort of a bit of a series over the next days, because I think modified is looking like potentially one of the best aggro mechanics in the set, and it's making some really good aggro decks. The Gruul one is kicking ass, and the Naya one is probably, the mana's a bit wonky, but it's, wow, it pops off. And this is going to be like my main removal spell in that deck, because it deals X damage to target creature or planeswalker, so you can just dump as much mana as you want in it. It can scale into the late game. You can get rid of a 5/5 or 6/6, doesn't matter, because you can just put all your mana into it, and you get discounted. So if you control a modified creature as you cast a spell, it deals X plus 2 damage instead. So, even if you have a modified creature on board, and you have only got 1 mana left open, you can cast this for X is 0 and still get rid of a 2/2. You see? So it's effectively a 2 mana discount if you have a modified creature, and you can get rid of bigger things with less mana. It's really, really nice. Then Bloodthirsty Adversary can just be a 2/2 hasty guy, which is great. Sometimes I just cast it for 2 mana and swing. But then in the later game, when you have 5 mana, you can pay the additional cost and cast one of your instants and sorceries again from the graveyard. The ones with X are a problem. Flame Discharge and Shatterskull Smashing, so all we're really able to get back is Heating Debate and Play with Fire, which is a bit of a problem. We might end up trimming the Bloodthirsty Adversary or putting in more removal, which is we'll see in the other versions that I have lined up. But either way, pretty nice even just to get back a Heated Debate with the Bloodthirsty Adversary. Then we've got 3 copies of the Kargan Intimidator. And this is one that was in the initial brew, and one that I don't like too much, but there is something to be said for trying to give mono red a little bit of that extra reach. Once the opponent starts to put down a few blockers and things, you can make one of those blockers a coward, and then cowards can't block warriors. This is a warrior. It can also become a 4/2 if you buff it and give it trample, which is quite nice, because if you put Lizard Blades on the Kargan Intimidator, it gets double strike and trample. That's pretty nice. Also, if Kargan Intimidator comes into play after your second chapter of Kumano faces Kakkazan, then it also comes into play as a 4/2, which can be pumped to become a 5/3. So pretty nice, pretty nice. I don't know about this card though. It's probably the one in the deck that I like the least. Then we've got 3 copies of Lizard Blades, double strike, cheap reconfigure cost. That's all you need to know about this. Put it on things with trample or flying and have them attack. If they die, reconfigure onto another thing for very little mana. Great, great card. Unfortunately, it's an absolute magnet for your, you know, cheap removal spells because it's just got 1 toughness. So a player with fire will handle it. What's it called? The MDFC. Anyway, you know the one I mean, that does 1 damage. That will get rid of it. So just be aware of that. But otherwise, really nice. Then we've got 3 Heated Debates. Now, in the original brew, Greg was running the 3 mana Learn Burn spell that allows you to access the lesson board, which is great. And it also can go face, which is great. But again, I wasn't getting enough damage in. Now that I've put in the Flame Discharge, though, we might actually be able to... Sorry, guys, a little bit of BrewLab action on the fly. Because I put in the Heated Debate before I discovered Flame Discharge, but now that we have Flame Discharge, maybe I'm okay with having Igneous Inspiration in the deck again, and I like the fact that you can go face with it. Sometimes that 3 damage is all you need, and of course having access to a nice little lesson board can sometimes be pretty freaking sweet. Then, our 3 drops. We've got Reckless Stormseeker and Shatterskull Charger. The initial brew had only Reckless Stormseekers and no Shatterskull Chargers. I like this for a little combo that I'm trying to get off here, okay? You play Kumano faces Kakkazan on turn 2. On turn 3, you play Shatterskull Charger. So it enters the battlefield with an additional +1/+1 counter, so it enters the battlefield as a 5/4. If it enters the battlefield with a +1/+1 counter on it, it doesn't leave the battlefield at the end of turn. Only if you cast it for 3 and it doesn't get the +1/+1 counter. So it sticks to the board, and you've effectively just on turn 3 cast a 5/4 hasty trample boy for 3 mana. That applies a lot of pressure, guys. I'm telling you now. If you go like turn 1 Reinforced Ronin or Rabbit Battery, turn 2 Kumano faces Kakkazan, turn 3 Shatterskull Charger, turn 4 this flips into the etchings of Kumano. I mean, and you play a Thundering Raiju or something. It's just haste, 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 haste. Turn 4 kills quite often against the control decks. So it's really nice little package, and it's why I've decided to go for the Shatterskull Charger instead of more Reckless Stormseekers, although Reckless Stormseeker is really, really good, and you'll see in some of the other versions of this deck that we're going to see tonight that I've gone up more numbers back to 3 or 4 sometimes of Reckless Stormseeker, because it's obviously really good to give something like Atsushi haste the turn it comes into play, and flying over the top for 6 is a nice play. So, but I just really wanted this Trampley boy to put the double strike onto, other than just the trample from the Kargan Intimidator. The Shatterskull Charger is just a much nicer, chunkier body to put the Lizard Blades onto. Then Atsushi, amazing. I've just got 1 mythic rare. I actually really want to craft my 3rd one. Let me just do that. I'm not going to put it in this brew, but it is such a nice card. I'm looking at an Atsushi deck. That's why I wanted a 3rd one. I was scrounging for that mythic all day. Atsushi the Blazing Sky. When it dies, you choose 1. Exile the top 2 cards of your library until the end of your next turn. You may play those cards. So great when you block, block and die. You maybe trade. Great. The opponent's creature's dead. You get some card advantage. Or you can make 3 treasure tokens if you're strapped for mana. But otherwise, it's just a nice 4/4 Frampler that can be, given haste to with numerous things in the deck. The Rabbit Battery and the Reckless Stormseeker. So And that finally brings us to Thundering Raiju, which is such a sweet card. And it looks like it should have flying. Like I always just assume that it does, but it doesn't. And it's a 3/3 hasty boy for 4 mana. And whenever it attacks, you can put a +1/+1 counter on a target creature you control. So you could just put that counter on the Thundering Raiju, which makes it a 4/4 hasty boy. But then it deals X damage to each opponent, where X is the number of modified creatures you control other than Thundering Raiju. I wish it didn't say that, other, but still, that's why you need to decide, if the opponent's board is, there's no big blockers that you're worried about, they're going to block your Thundering Raiju and it'll just die, or something like that, or the next turn they might play a bigger threat than it, and you're worrying about trying to grow it as quickly as possible so that your board presence is bigger than the opponent's, then put the counter on Thundering Raiju during combat. But if you'd rather increase the amount of damage that the second part of the text box does, then maybe you should put one of those counters on one of your other creatures that is not yet modified. So it'll also depend on how your battlefield is looking. If you have already got everything that you have on board is already modified, then you might as well just put it on Thundering Raiju, because you're not going to get any more damage by modifying a creature further, and then you're better off growing it. So lots of decisions to make where you're putting that counter when you're attacking with Thundering Raiju, and I hope to illustrate those decisions in the gameplay footage. But that's the brew. I've left the mana base exactly the same as Greg's initial version. I think he had like 3 Atsushi, 1 Raiju or something like that. Sorry, Greg, if I'm butchering your list, but it's just I can't help myself. It's what I do here in the lab. But I've left your mana base the same. Okay, he's got 2 Shatterskull Smashings, which also is a nice little bit of extra removal. We've got 2 of the Sokenzan Crucibles, 15 Mountains, and 4 Den of the Bugbears, which brings the totals to 23 if you include the Shatterskull Smashings. That's the brew. Let's jump into some games. Now, as usual, at this point in my videos is when I like to do a tiny bit of self-promotion. So, if you have not subscribed to the channel yet, kindly consider doing so. I'm so close to 500 subs, guys. I would really love to get there before the end of the month. Of course, that's also going to trigger the giveaway, which is good for all of y'all. And yeah, I get access to this community tab, which I don't even know how it looks, but apparently getting 500 subs unlocks this level of YouTubiness, and I get to do like status updates and polls and all kinds of stuff. So help me get there, please. Subscribe. And if you could also like the video, leave a comment, and hit the bell icon, then I'd just be the happiest little chappy in the whole wide world. It's a bit of a slow hand for mono red. That's a lot better. Both of our Stormseekers. Oh no, please not. Azorius, Doomscar Mage. I hope it's like spirits or something. Ooh. Esper vehicles. That's terrifying. Before you get too large, let's burn ya. Sweet card. Was kind of like, why would I bother with this for a long time? And now it's just like, oh yes, we have artifacts aplenty. This is going to be in many decks right until rotation. The hot shot. You got the blue. Okay. He won't block my... Oh wow, okay. Could be Doomscar. In which case, I will just keep bouncing my threat back to my hand. Zoink. Celestus. Crew 3. So this can crew this. If I attack, he crews it. He blocks with this guy. They both die. I'm okay with that. Okay. Interesting. I thought he would definitely keep... Ah, that's why. They need their pilots, right? But he has the pilot land. Very nice. So now you can crew this. It's nighttime, baby. Just gonna be like a... Thought poison the cup was foretold. Oh no, I didn't see the Celestus. Okay, what? He could have still done that, right? It's 3 mana, 1, 2, 3, plus that. I thought he could do it during his turn also? Or can he only crew with the land during his turn? I have a feeling that that is going to be the angel card. This is where we get to see, can he crew that thing or not? Sweet. Kind of, if it is a sweeper, at least the rabbit battery will stay. Which is something really important to note about this reconfigure thing. It's really nice. It doesn't go to your equipment zone. It'll just stay as a creature. Deep thoughts from the opponent. Deep thoughts. Probably starting to feel a little bit annoyed that he's getting slammed by a mono red player. I think this is going to be 2 angels. It is a Doomscar. Okay. Yes. Phew. That's nice. Oh, I picked the wrong... I was trying to pick the artifact removal card. We're going to have to change that in the lesson board after this match. 6-7 damage if he has no answers. So he can do this. Why has he waited all this time? He'll block the charger, no? Maybe the 2-2. I don't know. Surprised he didn't do that earlier in the game at some points. Maybe he's just a little low on it. Nice. I'd rather he kills the 2-2. Because if we draw a land, we can Atsushi equip go face for 5. No. You could crew. You can tap that with this. Yeah. Oh, he did that the wrong way. Oh, okay, no, he wanted to. Oh, we even had the. Might just be able to go face. You know, he like focuses all of his attention trying to get rid of the threat. And we'll just go like this. I like to move it, move it. So not your typical mono red game. We didn't close that out quickly at all, but we still managed to, you know, 20 life. Opponent didn't even touch us. Sorry, Esper vehicles. I think Azorius vehicles is probably the best, the way to go. We're still going to be jumping back into that. Like the first one I did was just Mech Titan, but like there's many more ways to build that, and we're going to be looking at it again soon. Okay, so that was version 1. Let's just quickly dive into it again for you guys to have a reminder. Again, Flame Discharge, the 1-drops, all the same. The 2-drops are going to change. The removal and the numbers of these 3 and 4 drops is going to change. So version 2 is one I'm just calling Kakkazan. And this is the one that I built by myself after just having looked at Greg's without actually copying it. And as you can see, very similar. 2-2, except here I've gone with a 3-3 split. and there's no 3-drop removal because we've got more 2-drop removals. We've got 2 copies of Abrade and 2 copies of Cammy's Flare, which is another sweet little removal card because it, again, provides you with that additional little bit of reach. If one of your creatures is modified, when you cast this on an opponent's creature, first of all, it's 2 mana for 3 damage, which is just the normal sort of floor for the card. But then if you control a modified creature, then it deals 2 damage to that permanent's controller as well. So pretty sweet. And then same number of this, but I've trimmed 1 Reinforced Ronin. We've got 3 Flame Discharge. The trim here has allowed me to put in 2 Reckless Impulse. It's just a little bit of a restock. Similar effect to the Death Trigger, actually the exact same effect as the Death Trigger on Atsushi. So it's kind of like a little mini Atsushi Death Trigger like earlier in the game, just to get some card advantage, which sometimes mono red really, really needs. But yeah, the rest is exactly the same. Oh yeah, and Shatterskull Smashing's gone, the mana base. I don't like running too many dens. They end up becoming tapped too often. And that's my version. So let's jump into the games. Oops, pardon me. Kakkazan. Kakkazan. What a good card name. The Imperial Court was founded to help Kyodai. AJ Smile. That looks fantastic. And we're on the play. Woohoo! Skadoosh. I'm like dangling a juicy target. I want him to Daily Dispute and get rid of this. So then I can swing in with Reckless Stormseeker next turn. And hopefully get a 4th land. Ooh, I could have actually blocked there. Okay, cool. Cool. Rites of Oblivion is a very, very good card. Wedding announcement. That's the usual go here. Or a Vanishing Verse. I hope he doesn't flip it yet. Very nice. Extremely nice. We've got our 4th land for next turn, Atsushi. Sure thing, bro. I'm gonna trample right through that.
You fight for me now.
You're going to use that Rite of Oblivion.
Know that I will not abandon my quest. I bring my own army.
Come on. Oh. This card is so good. No death trigger. Yes, please. That's what I like to see. Does 2 to the controller as well. And we swing in for 6. And that's going to be the game, my friend. Off you go, Orzhov midrange. Bye-bye. On to the next one. So 1 win with each brew version. As you can see, very similar, but that card is such a good target for the Bloodthirsty Adversary because it becomes modified when you flash the card back or whatever. So then, you know, it fulfills its own conditions to do the extra 2 damage to the opponent. Version 3 is what I'm calling Thundering RDW because it's leaning a little more into the modified mechanic, maybe just a little bit. But again, very similar, very, very similar. As you can see, I mean, almost exactly the same. Just the leaning more heavily onto the 1-drops to be able to go face with the Play with Fire. More abrades, no 2-drops, just removal and interaction on the 2-drop slot and just trying to go like, you know, loads of 1-drops, 3-drop, 4-drops. This is the one that I'm a little bit like uncertain about because like as you saw though, guys, those dual strike blades, we almost never put them anywhere. Like I really struggle to like play it and then play something else and equip it and then it's just the 1/1 with dual strike that gets removed half the time. And like the real game ending stuff is like my Reinforced Ronins and things like that. So let's play this one in unranked. How about that? This is the most recent iteration and the one I'm the least certain of. Those 2-drops in the first version with the Kargan Intimidator being trimmed already in the second version. There's still only the Intrepid Adversary and the Lizard Blades. Maybe we can trim the Lizard Blades from version 2 and put in the Kargan Intimidator and still leave out the Intrepid the Adversary, but I really like it as a way to get back Cammy's Flare. So lots of questions, and I'm sure it'll, you know, the meta just does this. It sort of solves itself. In a short time, if Mono Red does appear to be good, all the internet's greatest internet magic minds will combine to come up with the best possible configuration. Okay, so this is probably going to be... So vampires have gotten a significant upgrade with the Oonn Cult Anvil. It's as if you... It's kind of making up for the fact that they don't have... It's a card I'm thinking of. The Brushstroke, Sanguine Brushstrokes from Alchemy. That gives you the Blood Artist and all those extra little ping triggers. Now with the Oonn Cult Anvil and the synergizing with the blood tokens and the pinging and gain lifing from that, it's actually really good. Okay, do yourself 2 damage. You saved yourself from taking 2 by taking 2. Sure, the threat's gone, but I never think that's worth it. Sure. No worries, mate. I like the reconfigure animation. It's like zip, 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 zip. Starting to Kitsune-chan. Starting to cycle your tokens is never a good sign. Take 2 more damage. See if I can. Now we need the other removal spell, the one with X. Okay, that'll also do. Having a read, I guess. That'll mean this will come into play next turn. Now let's see if we can combat trick him. Thought not. There's some stuff in Vamps that's like, you know, they've got the 5 toughness on Anya, and then there's the 6 toughness on the Bloodveiled Purveyor. So starts to be quite a... Oh, nice. Why would you do that? Unless you've got another threat with lifelink or something. Okay. Predator. You have to sacrifice your Anya, or you lose the Predator. It's up to you. And that also means you tap it. So I win anyway. That's game. This little thing here is really nice. Kumano plus Shatterskull Charger. 5/4 with haste. Skadoosh. You don't have the mana. Alright guys, so we've arrived at the 43-minute mark. I think I'm just going to leave it at that. We had 1 match with each. We won all 3 matches. The correct configuration still does not appear perfectly apparent to me. I would love to hear your thoughts about it in the comments down below. Should I be running the learn spell for removal or not? Is it enough? What do you think about my addition of this new card over here? I really like Flame Discharge. Keep your eyes peeled for this one in the upcoming Gruul and Naya modified decks in the next days or 2. So yeah, let me know all of those things in the comments down below, please. And don't forget to go give the guys over at Burning Tempest my regards. I will leave a link in the description. That's going to be it for this video. Thank you all so much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. I will see you all in the next one for some fresh brews. And until then, this is Lone Fox from the Brew Lab, signing out. Peace, y'all.